Uh, I was fortunate enough to learn from those elders that still had the old knowledge, the old teachings from way back. So I learned from them, and these are the teachings that I now pass on to my students and to anyone that's willing to learn. And I've taught at the schools within the reserve also. I taught high school for about 5 years, but I came back here because I love teaching adults. So I want to thank Manisha for inviting me to give you a presentation on the Cree Kinship system and what the Cree Kinship system is all about. So if at any time you have a question, you can go ahead and interrupt me, and hopefully I can answer your questions. Before we begin, can we go around and have you people introduce yourselves? I want to know who you are, where you come from, what you do, and what you're responsible for, all that good stuff. Okay, so who wants to start here? Don't all speak up at once.
I will start.
Okay, thank you.
Carmen Nixie Gassoon. I live in Edmonton. Thank you. In Children's Services, I'm responsible to help support the development and delivery of some of the public reporting, the business plans, and then we also help some of the divisions through, developing different ways for them to measure that progress. And I've been working for the government for 29 years.
Nice.
Hi.
Nice to meet you.
I can go next.
Okay.
Good morning, Nicole Nitsi-Gosan, Notawi, Norman Martinson, Egwa Nigawi, Linda Ducharme, Nitato Scan, Children's Services High Prairie. And I'm happy to be here today.
Nice. Nice to have you.
Mio Gizigao, Nianitsa Gasun Nadine. And I work for the IPAS division of Children's Services. What I'm responsible for is providing Indigenous knowledge and cultural understanding to frontline staff. I deal with the KIU resource room, library, Indigenous speaker series, all that kind of stuff. And I work with the other half of the side is providing the training, this kind of training. So I'm very happy to be here. I'm Métis originally from Hinton, Jasper area.
Pleased to meet you.
I am Michelle Cardinal Mitsigasun. I am an Indigenous, I work for the Indigenous Relations Unit, so I'm responsible for helping staff for cultural planning, just bridging those gaps to Indigenous communities, as like all over nations. Also, prior to that, I was in child intervention, so I had a lot of frontline work. I myself am First Nations from Cowessess First Nations. I am Soto and Cree, and I'm with Central Region, but I'm based out of Lloydminster. So, yeah.
Nice to have you here. Kinehio,
Are you Cree?
Sorry, I'm just learning my own language, so so I apologize.
Keep
I am,
learning.
pardon me?
Keep learning.
I am gonna learn.
Come and learn from
So,
Anisha.
Rita, just kine nahi just tell us now the question, like, are you Cree? Like,
Kinehio auntie. Do
Can
you speak Cree?
you speak Cree? Okay.
so if you add chi at the end of anything, it becomes like a question.
Yeah. You're forced to answer with yes or no. Tabuiti. You understand that one, right? Yeah. Okay,
Is it,
did we get everybody? Yeah.
Catherine?
Oh, just, oh, sorry, Catherine, do you want to go?
Oh.
Oh, yeah, sure.
Okay.
There's a whole bunch of, whoops.
Oh, sorry. Go ahead, Catherine.
Catherine Nitsigasun, Natatuscan Children's Services and Intake. So I receive reports about child maltreatment. I haven't been here quite as long as Carmen. I just started in December, so 3 months instead of 29 years. I'm originally from Northern Alberta, near the Fort Familian area. But right now I'm working out of Westlock.
We're not too far away then.
No.
You're just over the hill. Okay.
Jill, go ahead. Jill.
Jill Nitsigasun, Natatoscan Children's Services Strategic Planning and Operations. So I work with performance measures for the ministry. Before that, though, I've been with the government for just over 1.5 years. So I spent just over, new to my role now, and before I was working with the Office of the Advocate for Persons with Disabilities, more of a frontline role in that position, working with those throughout Alberta, various issues with disability and accessibility and that type of thing. So I'm also very happy to be here today.
Oh, nice to have you here, Jill.
Daniel, go ahead. Daniel.
I'll probably butcher it. I'm still horrible at Cree, but Daniel Nitsi Gatsu. I keep trying to teach my daughter, but it's so hard for me to even say it, but I keep trying. I'm from Lac La Biche. I worked at the Youth Assessment Center for about 12 years, and then they decided to do renovations. So now I'm in entry-level HSW3. So yeah, I'm just learning a whole whack of new stuff and information and a whole new system. And I'm pleased to be here. Hi.
Nice to have you. Okay. Is that everyone? Okay, so this morning, Manisha asked me to share with you about our Cree kinship system. And in Cree, we refer to it as Wakohtowin. Wakohtowin. Now, the meaning of that word Wakohtowin is the description. It describes the relationship that we have, not just with family members or community or nation. It includes the relationship that we have with the universe, the cosmos, and the earth, especially the earth, our connection to earth. Okay. We have a special relationship with all living beings on the earth. Our elders teach us that that relationship is a very, very sacred relationship, the one we have with the earth. And we, as human beings, unfortunately have neglected our responsibility in looking after the earth and looking after her and treating her the way we would treat our own mothers, the same way. Okay? And I teach that to the young men, especially when I was at the high school. They would be spitting on the ground, and I would tell them, "Don't spit on the earth. You know, would you spit on your mother? You know." So things like that. We have to be treat her in a more sacred way, so that she can keep providing us life. We get life from her. So that's why we have that special relationship with the earth and everything in it, all living beings, all living things that grow on Mother Earth, the trees. And as Cree people, I heard one of the elders say, you know, as Cree people, the only thing that we take from a tree is the shade. That's it, the shade. Otherwise, we leave everything as is. And if we need something from the forest, then we pay, or we do a certain protocol, okay, where we pay for whatever we take. So those are some of the things that our elders have passed on to us on ways of respecting the earth and respecting all living beings, the birds, the four-leggeds. There's even certain protocols for the males. It's their responsibility to learn those certain protocols when they go hunting to provide for their families. There's certain protocols that they have to do when they're out there hunting. Okay? And those are things that the elders will teach you. Because in the Cree kinship system, we do have male roles and responsibilities where their roles are identified, and we have female roles and responsibilities where we as females have certain responsibilities. Okay? So to this morning, I'm going to briefly tell you about the Cree kinship system and then some of the behaviors that are encoded within those kinship terms. And I do have a PowerPoint presentation. Okay, are you able to see this?
Yes.
Oh, good. Okay. So here we have a picture of my ancestors. Okay? I owe a lot to my ancestors because if it wasn't for them, we wouldn't have this legacy of the Cree kinship system and what our beliefs are in a Cree way. This picture was taken in the 1930s, and we have here to the left of the picture here is my late aunt, and next to her is my late great grandfather. This was my mother's grandfather. His name was Louis Natuesis, and next to him, in between the great great grandparents, is my mother, and to the far right is our great grandmother, my great grandmother. Her name was Betsy, okay? And she was a midwife. She served as a midwife here in the community for a long, long time. So I acknowledge my ancestors when I do my presentation. Oops. Oops. You have to excuse me, you guys. I'm not really advanced with technology. Just wait. I have to get Manisha here. Okay. Oh my God. Oh, no, no more. How do you go to the next slide over here? Previous, one second. There's a Zoom link. If you want to go to the previous slide, click this PP. Where is the Zoom thing at the bottom?
We no longer see it.
Yeah, well, you'll be
Okay.
we finally figured out. We figured out. We figured out this computer. It's a very high-tech touch screen computer Rita has. So it should work fine now. Are you able to see the slides?
Yes.
Okay. Can you hear? Yeah, I think they can hear you well.
Yes.
You can hear. I'm just moving this here so you can see the slideshow. So from current slide. Now you press like this. I won't touch anything else. Okay, here we go. Already. Okay, this is what I was just talking about here. Wah, go the wind. And in Cree, what I have here is kahkio ikiwako taikoya, ikiwako taikoya, kotawi na manto. These original instructions were given to Nehiok, to the Cree people, when life was created. And we know that life is about relationships. When we speak of relationships in Cree life, we are not only referring to the complex system of kinship that is composed of family and friends, but we must also think about the relationship we have with Earth, our mother. And in Cree, we have a term for that, to say our mother. Kikawi no. And Aski is Earth. When we accept the notion that all life is sacred and created equally, then we may move closer to understanding our relationship to all things encompassed in this universe. This system has been passed from generation to generation and serves a very specific purpose and need. The foundation of these ideas are based in Sagitoan, which is love, Timagatoan, which is compassion. It's actually ultimate compassion, Timagatoan. Manatitoan is treating each other with the utmost gentleness. Even the way you look at a person, all those things are included in Manatitoan. And Kistatoan is respect. First and foremost, it's all about respect. For example, we have specific terms for addressing our parents. Nika, we, and Nota, we. Okay? And these have their own meanings in Cree. They have really, really deep meanings. Nimosom and Nokom. Those are my grandparents. And I respect them because they are the teachers of my parents. Therefore, they're always shown ultimate respect. Okay? And in a Cree kinship system, everyone above the generation of your parents are addressed this way, using these terms. Whether you're related by blood or not, you address every single one of them with these terms, Nimosom, Nokom. So in reality, you have a whole community of grandparents. Traditional way of addressing people. Traditionally, all people were addressed by their relationship title rather than by their given names. It was unheard of to call an aunt or an uncle by their first name, let alone a grandparent. In fact, to address any community member of your parents' generation or older by first name was just not done. Although this practice is still employed by some, there are many who do not address their relations in this way. And it's one of those things, unfortunately, that has been the methods used by the colonists to disconnect us because of that sacred relationship that we have to family. Certain terms are gender specific. Male speakers use the following terms to address their male relatives. Nistao is how you say my brother-in-law, and Nistas, my male cross cousin. Nitsawam, my male parallel cousin or brother. And these terms are male to male. Only males can address their male relatives using these terms. And as females, we cannot use this term nista to address our brothers-in-laws, okay, or our male cross cousins. We have specific terms for as females to address those relatives. We have what is called the avoidance law. And this serves a very, very specific purpose. And in-law avoidance has been the custom for generations. Nimanatsimaganak. Nimanatsimaganak are the parents of my husband or the parents of my wife. They're your in-laws. The kinship term is derived from the word manati. Manati means to show ultimate compassionate respect. And one of the ways that we do this is that the son-in-law cannot talk to the mother-in-law. The daughter-in-law cannot talk to the father-in-law. Communicate, if there's a need to communicate, it usually happens indirectly, where if a mother-in-law needed to communicate something to her son-in-law, she would address whatever was in front of her. Let's say there's a cat in the room. She would talk to the cat to communicate with the son-in-law. It was never direct. And same thing with the father-in-law. In a lot of instances, I remember a long time ago, a lot of instances, when the father-in-law came into the room and he saw the daughter-in-law, he would immediately turn around and leave the room. That is to avoid that, I guess to avoid that contact. Okay? And the reason being, I asked an elder, why is the in-law avoidance law so strict? And I said, because there's a lot of young people today, they don't understand this law. For the traditional people that follow this law and they don't talk to their sons-in-law or daughters-in-law, they can easily get offended. They think that their in-laws don't like them when that happens. And I asked, and she said, well, the reason is that you took their child away. And because you took their child away, they deserve that ultimate respect. So you have to be very, very careful in how you behave in the company of your in-laws. You avoid direct eye contact. You avoid. You're very careful in your speech, what you say. It so that you don't insult them. Sometimes we blurt out words and we insult people. So you're really, really careful with your speech when you're in their company. And that's what we call ultimate respect. Now in Cree, we use the term sis to refer to the following relatives. Okay? It means my father-in-law. It's also my mother's brother and my father's sister's husband. Okay? And of course, the same rules of behavior of ultimate respect, okay, is used to address these relatives, these three relatives here. And sis, the other one is nsigos. Nsigos is the term that is used to address my mother-in-law, my father's sister, and my mother's brother's wife. Nsigos. My son-in-law, ninahaksi, or my daughter-in-law, stim. And these terms here, my son-in-law and my daughter-in-law, they too have a really specific meaning. Okay. Relationship with males was different. At ages 8 to 10, girls were not allowed to play with boys because it was that age where the girls started learning their roles and responsibilities as females, and same thing with the males. And they learned from their fathers, their grandfathers, their brothers, and their uncles. Brothers and uncles were respected because they served as disciplinarians and they were feared. And that was their job, to keep everybody in line. If they misbehaved, well, then they had the right to discipline or correct the behaviors of those children. And I think this is where that concept of it takes a whole village to raise a child comes from. It's from our kinship laws because every member had a role and responsibility when it comes to taking care of children, ensuring that they were behaving properly. To offset that strict avoidance law, we have joking relationships. And in Cree, we refer to it as nanaway titawan. And a sister had a loving, teasing relationship. Both male and female cross cousins can joke with each other. Grandparents and grandchildren had a teasing relationship. The brothers with their sisters-in-law, however, they were not allowed to teach each other in front of children. It was improper to tease their sister-in-law in front of children because you were responsible for always role modeling respect. That was your job, okay? And the job of all the adults within the family systems. Okay? The joking between family members was always good-natured and appropriate. It was always done in an appropriate way. Respect for the other was always first and foremost. We also have what are called invented titles. In Cree, okay, in Cree you say namaki kwai aya teitawin itagon wako toni. In other words, what that means is no one is ever left out of the community. Everyone is accepted. In other words, nobody is ever seen as being different. Everyone was accepted. For example, in Cree, the word is another one of those gender-specific terms, and it means my brother or my male parallel cousin. It's only male to male. This was the term that was used to greet the first European to arrive in Eastern Canada. I don't know if any of you have seen that treaty medal. It shows an European and First Nations person shaking hands. So this was the term that the Cree people used to address these Europeans. Ntuam, my brother. Connections and relationships were established through invented titles. Now, if a new member came into the community, you ensured that member was made to feel welcome. So you invented, in some instances, you invented titles on how to relate to that person. These relationships are between two individuals, and the kinship terms begin with ni, which in English might mean my fellow whatever. For example, nitsekwestikwan means my, the closest way I can translate it is, sekwestikwan is a person who never combs their hair. Their hair is always in disarray. Okay? Now, nitsekwestikwan, this is a term that actually existed within the community where this old man had really, really long hair. But then his hair was always, it was always combed in nice braids. And this little girl whose hair, you know how your hair flies away, flies all over the place in the wind. This is how he used to address that little girl, because that little girl's hair was messy. Needs sequesticon. Okay. In English, that would translate to my fellow messy haired person. Okay. And that's how he'd relate to this little girl. Needs sequesticon. Needs Maestatin is another one. This one is between two males where the two males both wore really ugly cowboy hats. They were all bent out of shape. And this is something that they recognized in each other, that they both wore these ugly hats. So they related to each other using that term Maestatin. Maestatin is an ugly hat. Or the other one, Niziktimagus. Niziktimagus is Timagus is a term that is preterm meaning somebody that doesn't possess too many material things. Okay? They're not poor. They're poor material wise, okay, but they're rich in other ways in relationships. Okay, so that's what this term means. And Timagus. In other words, if these were two women that would address each other that way. They recognized that they both didn't have too much material wise. However, they were rich with children, grandchildren, great grandchildren, rich in family. Okay? So that's how they would address each other. And Nitopimnoaso is between two women that were always cooking. And they recognized this a long time ago when they moved their summer camps to the Sundance. These two women, they would be cooking outside using a tripod, and they recognized this, so they started calling each other that. You know, you and I, we both love to cook. That's what this word means, and all these different titles were. It was based on a characteristic or a trait that they saw in somebody else, and that's how they would relate to each other. And that's to make those to bring that connection, okay, to ensure that they were connected to the community. The kinship title or term by which a person is addressed will reflect the relationship that person has with one or more of the community. And sometimes a name will be given to someone to highlight a characteristic or the trait that they possess. What may have excuse me, what may have started out as a joke and reference will endure, and the name becomes that which everyone in the community comes to know them by. Now, of course, all of this may be in jest. However, it was done out of mutual love, acceptance, and affection. That was the purpose of the invented titles. And we also have what are known as parallel relatives. What are parallel relatives? These relatives are determined through your parents and their same-sex siblings. For example, your mother's sister is your parallel aunt, and the appropriate way of addressing her is Nikawis. In Cree, that means my little mother. So your mother's sister becomes your little mother and serves a very important role within family units. Okay. And it is the responsibility of Nikawis to help raise her sister's children. That's what the term means, my little mother. She can correct the misbehavior if the children need it. However, nowadays, because we've strayed so far from our kinship system, and a lot of the young people don't follow the system because they don't know the system. Sometimes it creates a lot of the dissension within family units, where the sister is just trying to help her sister raise the children and the other sister gets mad, it can create a lot of dissension because of that. And your father's brother is their parallel uncle and is addressed as Notawis. Notawis, which means my little father, and he serves the same purpose. Okay? Should anything happen to the brother, either one of the brothers, then it's the responsibility of the surviving brother to step up and look after his brother's children, to ensure that they're looked after, that they're provided for. That's what this term means, my little father. Okay? And a long time ago, these roles were really understood by the people within the community, and it didn't have to be told. They knew automatically that's what they were responsible for, and they stepped up when they had to. Now imagine if we followed this kinship system today, we wouldn't have a need to place our children in foster homes. Then it's the responsibility of the family members to step up and help with the raising of the children. Now, the children of these relatives are your parallel cousins and are called by the same terms that you use for your brothers and sisters. Okay, so now the fact that your parallel cousins are looked at as your own brothers and sisters, that gives them that same responsibility as your own siblings to help each other in the care and responsibilities of child rearing. So you have a whole family system that's helping each other raise all these children and look after these children. And the terms that we use to address our brothers, what is Stes, my older brother, Nimis, my older sister, and Seamus, my younger sibling, whether it's male or female. Okay, so there was a very specific reason why older brother and older sister have their own terms in addressing them, and the younger siblings is just in seems. We just use the one term, whether it's male or female. Again, it's based on that respect. Then we have cross relatives. These relatives are also determined through your parents. This term refers to their siblings who are of the opposite sex. In other words, your mother's brother is your cross uncle. Okay? And notice that word insist is the same term that we use to address or refer to our father-in-law. It's also a term that we use to address our mother's brothers. Your father's sister is your cross aunt. And the term that we use there is nsikos. Nsikos refers to our mother-in-law. And of course, we the same respect that we pay to our in-laws, we pay to our father's sister. The children of these relatives are your cross cousins. And these are the cousins that you have a joking relationship with. For the female speaker, Nitimus, I don't know if any of you have ever heard that term "nitimus," it's actually, it doesn't mean sweetheart. It's actually a kinship term. In other words, your mother's brother's son, and Ntacos, my female cross cousin, your mother's brother's daughter. That's your Ntacos. For the male speaker, Nitimus is your female cross cousin, your father's sister's daughter. And Nistas is your male cross cousin. Nistas. Any questions so far? I see there's some messages here on chat. So let me see.
I have a question.
Yep.
I was told that Nichimus was a term of endearment.
Huh?
Weird, right?
It is. It can act as a term of endearment when you're addressing your male cross cousin. Remember, I said you have a joking relationship with him.
Right, right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So actually, yeah.
Okay.
That's right too. Yeah. That's a very good question. And we do have terms of endearment too that exist. It which reminds me, somebody asked me if nitimus means my fellow moose. You know, nitimus. You know, when we were just talking about invented titles, that term niti and nitimus. Yeah. I said, no, that's not what it means. Okay, the block open. These relationships go on through the whole extended family, including grandparents, grandchildren, nieces, nephews, and on through the entire extended family. These relative designations serve to regulate the type of relationship that can develop and give parameters as to how close we can become with a relative. For instance, because parallel cousins take one another as brothers and sisters, they are thought of as being too closely related and not suitable as marriage partners. Deceased family members are never forgotten, and their memory is kept alive by adding fun to the kinship terms. So, in other words, Nimosome, you know, my grandfather is no longer here, so I refer to him as Nimosome Pan. Okay, and when you use that kinship term, a fluent Cree speaker understands right away that that person has gone to the spirit world. So any of the relatives, like Nicosis is my son, Nicosis Pan. Okay. My son, the one that went to the spirit world. Okay, that's the one I'm referring to. So you just add pan to the end of the kinship word, the kinship term. Nikawi pan, or notawi pan. And we also have it within our system, custom adoptions. Okay. Tapakotuwin. Tapakotuwin means you're replacing a deceased relative through adoption. That's what this means. Okay? So if you find somebody or you meet somebody that reminds you so much of your deceased family member, then you can adopt that person just because they remind you of your late mother, your late father, your late son, whatever. Okay? That's what that means, custom adoptions. In Plains Cree society, relationships last for all time. For example, if your sister eventually has 2 husbands, both remain your brothers-in-law. In other words, even if your sister divorced her both husbands, they remain your brothers-in-law for life. So once a relationship is created, it's for life. You can't um, you can't divorce that brother-in-law. It's just not done. Okay? And this is the last part of it. Okay? Now, this is just a message that I give to my students when I do this presentation. And this means traditions will not last simply by thinking about them. They exist and live because we still live to remember them, practice them, and honor where they come from. It is what makes us Cree. And here I just have an example of a kinship chart that I make my students do. They have to do research and they have to attach these kinship terms on their chart. This is how I test them to make sure that they're addressing the relatives the correct way, the way that they're supposed to. Okay, so the triangles represent the males, and the circle are the females, and the equal sign indicates marriage. Now, in our culture, we have what is called the natural law of marriage, and it's between male and female. You'll notice that throughout the charts between male and female because it's natural law. We follow natural law. And I do have two samples of charts. Oops, lost it again. One where the male, because of the gender specific terms, the male follows one chart and the female follows the other chart because it has all those kinship terms on that chart. And that's the end of the session. Hopefully, okay, hopefully you were able to understand what I was talking about there and just to have an idea of what our Cree kinship system is all about. It's all about getting along. It's all about being responsible for everyone within the community, especially within family units. Okay? Because for the Cree people, family was important. Okay. And unfortunately, there's this connection again that was done through the introduction of the residential school system. And even that in itself, the residential school system had a very specific purpose. It was to take away our spirituality.
Can I ask the natural law of marriage? Like, what does that look like, or what does that kind of entail? I'm a little bit curious because I actually had the same question if, because like we do have legal marriage, right? But you had mentioned natural law marriage. So what does that kind of entail, I guess?
Well, in the Cree kinship system, I asked this question. I'm glad you asked me. I asked one of the elders this question, how did they do the marriage ceremonies? Was there a marriage ceremonies prior to European arrival? Before we had to get a license, or to get somebody, or to get somebody to witness to make us say I do, all that stuff. I asked that question and she said, well, a long time ago, because we followed a system where it was all about keeping the bloodline clean, right? Okay, so marriage between family members was discouraged, between relatives was discouraged. Okay, So what happened was the parents would pick out a husband or a wife that was suitable for their child. Okay? And a lot of times it was a member of from a different tribe. Yeah. Okay. So that's the first step. Okay, looking for a suitable marriage partner. Okay. And then the next step was just arranging for these two couples to come together. Okay. So, and as long as there was a union between this couple and it produced offspring, it was considered a marriage. But a lot of times there was ceremonies, yeah, where there were prayers done for them, pipe ceremony maybe, and also nowadays they call them standbys or witnesses. You know, the ones that um, serve as witnesses in a marriage. Okay, a long time ago it was old people that served as standbys, and their job was that they were supposed to counsel the young couple if there were disagreements or they couldn't get along. That was their job. Okay, and it was always old people that were selected so that they could do that. Old people that stayed together in a relationship for a long time, they served as mentors for that couple so that the marriages worked out. Okay. Now I forgot your question.
You actually answered it. I was just wondering, I was just curious about the natural law and how that kind of, I guess, how that kind of worked in the Cree culture, like how, like, again, like we were talking about marriage certificates and stuff like that. So you pretty much answered it, which was awesome. Like, I just needed to, like, I just wanted a bit more information regarding that. And do you, like, just out of curiosity, is like, because I noticed that there's a lot of like traditional things happen. And maybe it's because I'm becoming more aware of it, right? But I'm
You're paying
noticing,
attention.
yes, but I'm noticing that there's a lot more, like, just even in my own life, like, because like I kind of, I'm reconnecting, right? So I'm learning as I go and I'm trying to do all that. But I'm also noticing that a lot of these traditional things that I'm learning, I'm seeing it in different aspects of my life, of area, that type of, connection, I guess. And so I was wondering, like, regarding that, is there still traditional ceremonies for marriage that happen to date, or is that kind of like, has the legal system kind of taken over that? I'm just curious.
Yeah, yeah. Like everything else within our customs, our traditions, the legal system practically took over a lot of it, and there's no such thing as prearranged marriages, for one thing. Okay? The couples that just fall in love with whoever gives them a wink, whatever, or whoever smiles at them, and then they found out that that wasn't the right person for them, so divorce happens. Yeah. Yeah, so that doesn't happen, the prearranged marriages. Yeah. And having a couple as standbys doesn't happen. It's mainly, for me, I find that a lot of them are shows, like it's a show, that they have 8 standbys over here, you know, when all reality, all they need is one, you know. Anyway, that's how much our Cree culture has changed. Yeah, but we do understand that we have to adapt because we live in two worlds. So we have to learn how to balance the two. Yeah. Okay. So those are the things that we struggle with, how to balance the two, right? How to live in the Munia world and how do we live in our own world? How do we combine the two? Yeah. Does that answer your question?
Thank you. Thank you so much. That was really informative. I just, just curious.
Yeah, and also we did make a list where of natural law of marriage, where which terms we use, like insist, that term that we used to address our father-in-law is
Right.
always married to Unsigos, my mother-in-law. Okay, insist is married to Unsigos. Okay, and Nika, who is my mother's sister, okay, is married to Nucha, who is my little father. So my little mother is always married to my little father. So we have specific kinship terms for those two. Yeah. And we have specific terms for our daughters-in-law and how we refer to her family. So you have a whole community of relatives, a whole nation. Yeah. Yeah, it's an awesome system. So that's why I keep encouraging the young people to try and learn it and learn those codes of conduct, rules of behavior encoded with each kinship term. Automatically within each kinship term is encoded with those terms of love, respect, ultimate compassion, those four terms. Okay, so immediately when you address your grandmother, nokum, nokum, when you use that term nokum to address your grandmother, immediately you begin to feel all that love, that warmth for her. Yeah. Yeah, it's a system that works, and we can bring it back. So I'm relying on you to bring it back, to be the example, and use those terms to address your relatives. Yeah, because it's the ultimate way of respecting your relatives, using those kinship terms to address them. And also it's spirit to spirit. You recognize the spirit of that person. Yeah. So that's why it's also defined as, say, a sacred relationship between all relatives, between all people. Yeah, yeah. That's how come Anisha has become a part of us.
Yes, I do call Rita Nasima's
Nimis.
Nimis's older sister. Nasima's younger sister. She's older than me. So
Yeah.
Nimis. And our IT network administrator is a young boy, Harlan Buffalo. He is Rita's grandchild. So I call him Cheecham. It's so nice. Here, we do not address people by their first name. It's by relationship, and I think it's really good. Like, so I got adopted into Muscooties by Rita,
Yeah. And just to show you, my sister's sons, they address me as Nika Awis, which means my little mother. And this I showed them from the moment they started talking. So this is what you call me, Nika Awis. And they've addressed me that way. And still to this day, they call me Nika Awis, my little mother. And one of them, when he was 12, somebody called me by my name, Rita. And I turned around and I said, what? And my nephew looks at me and says, Gawis, what does Rita mean? It's just absolutely nothing. It doesn't mean nothing. Whereas Nigawis means, I'm your mother, you know? So it didn't occur to me until then how so very meaningful this kinship system is, So he didn't even know my real name because they always addressed me with that kinship title. Yeah. So, yeah.
Rita, your advice on how we remember the kinship terms. Like when first time I came to your class, Nia, we did the family tree, family chart. How do we remember, as a beginner coming back to the culture, and trying to use the names, how do we remember like all the relationships?
Ni. Okay. All kinship terms begin with the first person. Okay. First person. And it stems from the word niya. Niya in Cree means I or me. Okay. So when you address your relatives using the kinship term, you're addressing them as, you're telling them that you're mine, you're a part of me. Like ni ka we, my mother. Okay. Ni mo som, my grandfather, you're mine. Okay. So that when you're addressing them using the kinship titles, this is what you're actually telling them. You know, you're my grandmother. And the correct term to address grandmothers, no kum. It's not koko. Okay? Kokum actually means your grandmother. Okay? It's addressing her in the second person. You don't address anybody using the terms in the second person. Okay? You address them as mine, me. Okay? And
Chapawan. I'm just curious. I've heard the term Chapawan before, which I always understood it as great grandparent. Like so I was just curious if that had a different meaning, because I always assumed that Gugum was grandma, but now I'm understanding it means your grandma, right?
yes.
Yeah. So I was just wondering like about Chapawan, because I have heard it before, but maybe I'm pronouncing it incorrectly or I'm hearing it incorrectly.
You're hearing it incorrectly.
Okay. Okay.
It's nitapan. Nitapan. And that's just a diminutive form of saying nitan skutapan. Okay. It's you're actually saying the next generation down below me. Okay. Or descending generation. Nitan skutapan. My great grandchild. Okay. Now to say my great grandmother in Cree, the correct way of saying that is Ntanskenimus, Ntanskenokum, Ntanskenokum. Ntanske is Ntanske is how can I how can I explain that? It's a great grandmother, but the term itself has a term itself has a deep meaning. And I can't really explain it because it indicates a generation, which refers to a connection. You're connected to this grandmother, to this grandmother, okay? And relates to those connections that we have with each ascending generation, no matter how far. Great, and we have terms for those. We even have terms for exes from Texas. So nobody's left out.
Hopefully those are still good ones.
Oh, yes. There was none of this dissension or this almost like how do you say it? There was always that acceptance and that love and that warmth, no matter who. Okay. Yeah. So we had kinship terms to address even your husband's girlfriends. Kinship law says you get along with her.
Took me a minute to process what you're saying.
Makes sense though, doesn't it? Why not total acceptance? Nothing but that. And getting along.
So
Getting
instead
along.
of referring to them as my louse, it's I wish you well. We may not have got along well, but I wish you well moving forward. Okay.
Yes, yes, oh yes, you, you hunch. Yeah, there was that assurance that everybody got along. Remember at the beginning, I told you life is about relationships. And here I'm telling you how. You better like your husband's girlfriend.